Hello everybody and welcome to the 4th Age of Middle-earth. This is Count MRVHS. I am on the development team for a wonderful project, in my humble opinion, the 4th Age Total War, the Dominion of Men. This is a project that's been around for quite a long time, since I believe just about the beginning of Rome Total War itself, back in 2004. I wasn't part of the project then. I came on as a writer, God, almost around 10 years ago, I want to say. But here I am finally getting around to doing a Let's Play for it, and let's take a look. We're going to start here on the faction selection screen. Actually, you know what? I want to go back a little bit. When you are greeted with the opening menu, you're going to, of course, probably choose single player, and here is where you'll make your first big decision of the game. Do you want to play a Mannish faction or a non-Mannish? We have two non-Mannish factions available, those for the dwarves and the elves, and we have rather more Mannish factions here. I'm going to go with the Mannish faction. I'm going to choose, for this Let's Play, the Chiefdom of Rhun. This is one of my favorite factions of the mod, has been for a very long time, since back in the new Shadow days, back in, God, I want to say 2006 or 2007. The map has expanded since then. A lot of the factions have grown. We've seen a lot of change in the mod. But I still love Rhun. There's just something about them. They're these sort of on the fringe Easterlings. We don't know much about them, and they have got some great strengths, got a few weaknesses as well. And this is, dare I say, probably not one of the most popular factions for most people who are familiar with Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth in general. But they have some strengths. I want to say they have some scrappy but good all-round infantry, a bit of everything really. Some cavalry, you've got berserkers, you've got my absolute favorite unit, the War Wains, which you can see depicted here. So let's just get right into the faction here. We're going to keep this a relatively short intro video. I just want to sort of introduce you to the concept of the Let's Play, give you the rundown of the faction, some of the goals for the campaign, and then we'll see how this all goes. Alright, so here we have the faction introduction for the Men of Rhun. I'm not going to read this. It's a little odd because I wrote most of the words in this mod, so I'll just sort of leave it here for you to check out if you would like, and we'll click, of course, Resume Campaign. So here we are greeted with the beginning position for the Easterlings of Rhun. We begin in possession of 5 settlements. Our capital here is Tham, and I'm probably going to mispronounce the names. Any of you Tolkien linguist purists, be sure to leave a comment down below and let me know how I screwed it up. Tham is our capital. It's also a chief city, which we can tell here with the blue banner right next to it. These are important cities for reasons which we will see shortly. So let's just talk a little bit about our starting position and what we can expect for this campaign. So Tham is our capital. We also have 2 settlements to the north, Rake Coast and Fennis Rim. These are both capable eventually of producing ports, which can bring in a hefty amount of trade income. Further to the north, we have some rebels here, and then we have another faction, which you can just barely see, North Rhun. So these are conceived in our mod as sort of a breakaway faction from the larger Chiefdom of Rhun. They share a lot of the same units in common with us. We do not start in a position of alliance or anything with them. As you can see, they're down here. They began at war with the Kingdom of Dale, however, as do we. So in the initial campaign, we'll probably leave them alone for a little while, let them get into some trouble, while we focus on more pressing matters to the south and west. Further south, we have another 2 settlements. These are the last 2, Adel and Amrundor, both fairly capable of serving as good financial settlements, and they both butt up against down here, which you can see is the land that belongs to the Chiefdom of Khand. Now in our diplomacy screen, which I looked at a second ago, we begin the game as allies with Khand. They are our only ally. Not only are they allies, we begin with trade rights and military access that goes both ways. So there's a few different ways to play the Chiefdom of Khand to our south here. One, we could hope the alliance holds, and we could let them get into trouble with the Haradrians to the south and to their west. We will likely see them expand into the eastern parts of Mordor. But that's not what I think we're going to do. I know that we begin in an alliance with them, and it might be natural to hope that alliance holds, but you all know, Total War games, that is unlikely. So I am going to make it a goal to sort of bum rush them fairly early. We will first try to get our diplomacy worked a little bit, and then we'll try to take some land in Khand. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, a big goal of this campaign is going to be protectorates. I love getting protectorates in Rome Total War or mods based on it. It's a thing that I've wanted to do for years, and only in the past few years have I and a few other people at Total War Center, I believe, worked out a pretty regular, predictable way to do this. Wombat is a fantastic contributor to the mod. Done a lot of testing for us, done a lot of explanation of the diplomacy system in particular, and if you go to TotalWarCenter.net, you can check out his diplomacy guide, which goes into fantastic depth about a system that I think all too few people understand. So one of the goals for this Let's Play is to show off some of that system. So we're going to, as I said, invade Khand, with the hopes of making them not just an ally, but a protectorate for us. And if we make that happen, if that works out, then hopefully we can convince you that there are some great advantages to making that happen. The other reason we want to take some territory from Khand is because they allow us to train some specialized units. Rhun, as I was saying earlier, is a great all-rounder. They have some good cav, some good infantry, some basic ranged units. But Khand, and taking territory to our south, will allow us eventually to train some horse archers, and that's a pretty great advantage, which horse archers are very rare in the mod. We don't get access to them otherwise, so we're going to have to take some of this territory. Sorry, Khand. Otherwise, in the west, we have here a faction called the Kingdom of Adunabar. If you're at all familiar with the mod, then you know them as the big purple Dunedainic faction, which is in a civil war with the reunited kingdom, the people of Gondor and Arnor to the north. Adunabar is pretty strong initially, especially in Mordor, and they've got some good settlements around the Sea of Nirn here. In particular, there's a chief settlement here, which can bring in a lot of wealth for us, and so it's probably a good idea for us to get involved in this part of the world. We do start with a field army, you may notice. Good old Ulfgang, Ulfang of Tham. I don't believe he's part of our royal family necessarily. He's not an heir, he's not the king, but he starts off with a middling selection of troops. He does have war wains, though, so you gotta love that. And he is positioned right next to this independent settlement of Erebos. Now, we do begin war with the independent peoples. This is what we call the rebels in this mod. Not every faction does, interestingly enough. You may notice quite a few other factions are not at war with the rebels initially. So for someone like the city kingdom of Tharbad, or Rovanian, or Dorwinian, or even the Bjornings, they may be surrounded by rebels, but they have to make the tough decision. Do I start a war with them and lose out on that potential trade income, or, well, do I just go it on my own and strike out against another faction, which may hit me back harder? This presents us with an interesting dilemma on the first couple of turns. What I think, in the past, in previous builds, Adunabar has been such a threat to the Chiefdom of Rhun that we really don't want to waste any time taking a rebel settlement that's relatively poor when we could be bringing our forces down here to answer any eastward expansion that Adunabar may present. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do. I think we're going to go ahead and do it. I think we will, let's see what they have. 2, 3, 4, 5. They've got 3 warband units. We have 2. They've got 1 unit of archer, as do we. They've got 1 axe. Then we have an axeman and a spearman. So we completely beat them in terms of base units. And then, of course, we also have the advantage of a family member general as well as war wains. We could assault immediately, as this settlement doesn't have walls. But of course we may take some losses there, so it's a tough decision. Well, while I'm thinking about that, let's take a look at the traits. This is another goal of this Let's Play, to highlight the fantastic trait system that Eredan the lead developer for many years, put a ton of time and effort into. This is an incredibly complex and rewarding system to work and play with. So in addition to trying to work the diplomacy system a bit, I'm also going to be trying to play what I call the authority game. That is making sure that my king, my faction leader, the high chief, I guess, has the highest authority that he can have, and making sure that his governors are as loyal as they can possibly be. So let's take a look at our faction leader here. We've got Brada of the Eastland Plains. He's the High Chieftain of Rhun, and he starts off with a few traits and ancillaries. In this particular throw of the dice, he doesn't seem to be too fantastic at anything. He starts off as an inept governor and a poor commander. And we can see that his authority is initially at 0. Now, I think it does take the game a turn or so to kick that off. But the authority stat has an impact on a lot of other things. In particular, it has an impact on this very important and potentially overlooked trait called it's the opinion of liege trait, we call it initially. And this is something that you're going to find right below the this set of characteristics. We've got energetic, unintelligent, and charismatic, and right down below that you'll find that this character starts off as being supportive. Now that's going to change. This is just the default of turn 1. Every family member is going to start off as supportive. Once we actually click end turn, the traits are going to kick in, and all of that will change. Supportive, though, is a pretty decent place to be. You can see down at the bottom of this big wall of text all of the effects. +5 trade income, +5 income tax, +5 land tax, 10% decrease to troop training costs, and a +1 for our troop morale. The higher he goes in this trait, the more supportive he becomes, the better the bonuses. The less supportive he is, the worse the bonuses. And the level of support he's going to show his faction leader is in part based on that faction leader's authority stat. Now, there are 4 basic ways to increase authority. One of them has simply to do with the length of the reign of the faction leader. The longer the reign, you'll see that authority meter tick upward. Another one is the finances of your kingdom. So currently we have 16,000 in the bank. Of course, that's going to go down quite a bit. Let's just see how that's going to look next turn. Projected profits almost 3,000. We're going to be eating into that quite a bit because I'm going to be doing something you're going to see in a second here. I'm going to be actually lowering our taxes to low across the board. This is not something that I see a lot of people do. It makes sense, on the one hand, to keep taxes as high as they possibly can while still allowing for some growth, because you do want that extra income. The problem with that, in my opinion, is that this mod is very sensitive to population levels. So population is relatively slow to grow. Populations are initially relatively small, although you can see Rakos has over 5,000 able-bodied men there for our recruitment pool, basically. And the more you recruit, of course, the more you drain that population. So one reason we're going to want to lower the taxes is just to get a bit of growth going here. But the other reason is that low taxes actually increase your king's authority. The people living under his reign do not want to be taxed heavily. So if we decrease taxes to low, not only will we be growing the population, we will increase that authority stat of the faction leader. All right, the last 2 factors that feature into authority are diplomatic on the one hand, and then the sort of the status of your kingdom in terms of settlement numbers. So with regard to diplomacy, we just took a look at the screen here, and we saw that we have 1 ally and a couple of enemies if you count the rebels here. With regard to authority, the more allies you have relative to enemies, the better off. So if I make some alliances and if I can end some wars, my faction leader authority is going to increase. So that's something we will want to keep in mind. Of course, we don't want to be at peace forever. We do want to expand, but that's something we want to try to balance out. So we want to find some suitable allies. I know initially that I definitely want to start an alliance with Adunabar. Adunabar is, here's our emissary here. We're going to send him this way. I know there's some Adunabar settlements over here. And the reason for that is, if we just examine our diplomacy more closely here, Khand is allied not only with me, but also with Adunabar. Now, what that means is, if Khand attacks me, or if I attack Khand, Khand and Adunabar will remain allies. That's problematic for me because it essentially means that they've got an alliance block forming against me. So what I want to do instead is split that party up. I want to send my diplomat over to try to get an alliance with Adunabar and then break my treaty with Khand, take some Khandish territory, in the hopes that Adunabar will stick with the aggressor. This is something I've observed in my own playthroughs, that when the AI is forced to make a choice of two factions that it's allied to, when they come to blows, the AI typically will side with the aggressor. So make sure that you are the aggressor, and as we're playing the Easterlings, that seems only fitting. Okay, other goals. Oh, the fourth element in terms of faction leader authority is settlements. So these are our homelands. We want to keep these, and we want to avoid being under siege. We also want to expand, quite naturally, and we want to expand and take important settlements. Anything with one of these blue banners near it. Of course, this is the capital of Khand. This up here is the capital of North Rhun. We definitely want to grab those at some point. That's all going to add to our faction leader's authority. So with all of those things, hopefully we can increase our authority, increase the loyalty of our captains, and I just find that a fun thing to do. All right, so let's see. Do I want to assault? It's 5 turns. You know what? Sure, let's do it. The reason I hesitate to assault immediately is because I know to my west we have a small kingdom, the Kingdom of Rhun, and the closer I get to them, if we start to share a border, it's going to be, well, it's going to invite an attack, essentially, and I want to, to some extent, control the amount of wars I've got. But, you know, the alternative is letting Rhun take these rebel settlements before I can get there, so I don't want to do that. Alright, so let's take a look. Here's my general. I forgot to take a closer look at his traits, but let's just take... I just love these units. I'm sorry, I don't remember who on our dev team designed these. I know that Webb had made some additions or some changes to them. Fantastic, in my opinion. Adding javelins. Normally, or in previous editions anyway, the bodyguard unit bore swords into battle, but we thought it would be fantastic to add some throwing spears to them. Now what I'm going to do is take them right off skirmish mode. Just makes it easier for them to control. And what else do we have here? Oh, we've got the war wains. Love the shields, love the spikes. Spikes everywhere. Axes, throwing javelins as well. These are a fantastic unit. Unfortunately, this battle is not going to see them in any action, really. We're not going to risk them in the settlement battle where they're going to get swamped and mobbed and sort of taken over. So we're going to depend instead on our infantry and our general for the most part. Let's see where the best place to position them is. This is going to be a more or less straightforward fight, so I don't expect a lot of finesse really here. We're going to want our archers up close, rush them forward, and I'm going to lead with the stronger units, the more heavily armored ones. Let's see. I'll have the warband over here so they won't get in the way of the archers, and I'll have my my faction leader set up here. We will bring the wains over just to act as a bit of a deterrent. One of the wonderful things about these units is that they frighten nearby enemy infantry, so just their mere presence can be pretty effective. I will keep them on skirmish just in case I lose focus here. So let's see what we've got. Alright, we're going to want to rush everybody in. And you know what? Let's rush the reins in. I can't not use them. Alright, halt those archers. We'll shoot at their men while they're moving. And we're going to see the wains get in. I'm going to take them off melee. Alright, here they're shaken already. Okay, and they're routing. So the power of wains. Don't underestimate them. You don't necessarily have to use them in battle. As you can see, they can be great just to push an enemy's morale to the breaking point. I'm going to run them in. Their axemen are the unit really that I'm most worried about here. I'll bring my archers up, but I'm not in much of a hurry. Okay. I would love just to rush the warband through and catch those guys before they make it back to the square. But it's probably not going to happen. Let's bring the wains a little closer. See if we can get these warbands to to run. They are wavering.
Alright, since they're taking their time... Well, you know what? Let's rush. We gotta rush. We're Rhun, right? Gotta rush. So let's bring... Okay, and there they go. The warband are routing. Alright, I'd like to run my general up. I should have checked his traits. So the thing about this mod, traits are very important. And one general's bodyguard is by no means identical to another general's bodyguard in terms of stats or performance on the battlefield, because the traits can have a huge impact on those factors. I could be looking at a general here who is sick, who's deathly ill, who's weak, who's cowardly, and all those things can hurt his stats and make it much more difficult for him to survive. So, you know, putting him actually into the fray here is a bit of a risk. So I don't know if I want necessarily to do that. All right, let's fast forward a bit while the march is going. Alright, I'm going to just set these guys up here. I don't necessarily want them to do the fighting in the square, and so we'll put them on defense mode here. Let's run the Wains in, run my general over. Right. The Axemen, if I could get in behind here without killing my general, the Axemen would be a good charge target. But you know, again, I should have brought my heavier units forward, like I said. This means we're going to take a good amount of losses among our warband. On the one hand, you know, that's not such a bad thing. These warband units are relatively cheap, easy to retrain. But on the other hand, it's a drain on your population if you have to do it so much. So, well, that's where we are, I guess. It's taking them a while to get up. Let's just fast forward while this melee continues. Alright. I think I want to halt the Spearmen. I'd love them to go toe-to-toe against the warband, and I would love the Axemen instead to do the fighting against their Axemen. And one reason is Axemen of Rhun have War Cry. Great little ability. Not a lot of the units in the mod have this. It's usually limited to tier 2 or above, and it does add to their performance, so we're going to rush them in. Of course, we're going to have a hard time getting through because I've completely clogged everything up. I gotta say, I love the music for this too. Alright, maybe I can run my warband out. No, there they go. What are you gonna do? Alright, my Axemen are losing heavily. Okay, I have to, full confession here, it has been a long time since I've played this mod in particular. I've been playing, let's see, I've actually been playing Thrones of Britannia quite a bit lately and enjoying it, but I am afraid it has messed me up in terms of my battle performance, so I am not doing as well here as I thought. I could also blame it on the fact that I'm recording a Let's Play. We could do that. Alright. Looks like they're not going to hold for too long here. City battles often come down to this grind, so we're just kind of watching the grinder go. This is their captain, I'm just noticing, so if we kill him, that'll be a good thing. These warband that are in the city square are quite low morale, so they're shaken, losing heavily. Tell you what, since these warband are over here, how about we run them through? I know it's going to be kind of suicide. No, that failed. Fail! Okay. Goodbye! Alright, here we go. The captain's down. These guys are going to be routing pretty soon. my warband route into the town center. Very good, guys. Okay. Jeez, I have wiped out so much of my infantry doing this. Nope, we don't want to go in yet. Run! So this is my first attempt at doing a Let's Play, and I've got to say, it is
something else, trying to trying to keep track of everything that I'm supposed to be doing. All right, I also have the timer working against me here. If they just hang out in the square forever, then they can certainly win this. All right, I got to bring my archers up. That'll be a sure way to pull them out. And if I can pull them out, I can get them to rout, at least in theory. If I get them all to rout, then I don't have to kill them all, right? And we just sort of win based on that. I gotta run these guys up. All right, come back, stay on guard mode. You too. All right, there we go. They're coming out now. They're winning. And I'm going to run my general in. This is not great. He's a spearman unit. At least it's only one unit at a time of warband. I'm going to pull him out. Maybe we can do another charge. Alright, axemen are wavering. To get those axemen out of here, I think they're... Warband are a much softer target. Oh, my archer's great. Great. Alright, so they've actually retreated back. That's good to know. We want to do the fighting closer to the Wanes so they can have that morale debuff. Let's see. They're going to keep coming out to hit my archers if they can. And deciding that they don't want to face the cavalry and the rest of the troops. So they're wavering. You can see they keep coming out and just thinking better of it. As would I, to be perfectly honest. How much time we got left here? 18 minutes. I should mention that I'm playing on the recommended difficulties. Okay, if we can grind these guys down. So I'm playing on Bull Roaring, which is our version of hard difficulty. And that's the recommended difficulty for the mod. I've seen a few other YouTubers eschew that advice and just go full steam ahead for the very hard. And there we go. I think that should get us the victory. I do not have the guts to attempt a very hard battle difficulty. Okay, so I know some people like looking at the battle stats screen. And we took just massive, completely ridiculous, over-the-top casualties. Quite embarrassing, as a matter of fact, but what are you going to do? We do have a settlement. So the battle difficulty is on the equivalent of hard. Campaign difficulty is on, I can't remember, is it decidedly Tookish? I think so. That's our equivalent to medium. And again, I really, that's recommended for a reason. You want to go medium. The AI is not going to be a pushover in this mod. It's going to have all the faults of any Total War AI, but in the medium difficulty, it's going to be much easier to engage in diplomacy in a somewhat sensible way. So give it a shot. Now, we just captured the settlement. We have a few options here. The population of Erebos, if you can tell, this is just a small village, no walls, very little development, and they don't hate us, okay? That's as good as we can say about that. We don't get a lot of well, actually, we get over 1,600 thralls, essentially, if we choose to expel the populace. That's maybe not a bad idea, but I think I'm going to just occupy. We don't want to necessarily drain the population again, because this is going to be our new front line of our western borders. So we're going to occupy. This would get us some cash, but we're going to occupy. All right. Let's take a look here. As is my wont, I'm going to decrease the taxes too low. I don't think this guy's going to make... Well, actually, he's a competent governor. He's also a competent commander, so that means we're going to have to determine whether we want to use him as a fighter or as the leader of a city. I'll leave that decision for a bit later. What I am going to do is start building this provincial pacification. It's the only thing we can build, and we need to get this development going. Let's have a quick cruise around, though, and take a look at our other family members and determine who's fit to be a general, who's going to be out taking the fight. Okay, we've got another competent governor and competent commander here. He is the stats in terms of his background are he is a plainsman. That's his subculture trait.
He's of the tribe of the Wain, which, is that the leading? No, White Ox is the leading, sort of the royal house. The faction leader is of the tribe of the White Ox, and if you have a family member who has the same subculture and sub-faction, he's going to be much more loyal. So we may see a bit of loyalty problems with Gan of the Eastland Strand here, since he hails from a different tribe. He's a pretty good governor, though, so I may keep him there in Fennis Rim. Here we've got a poor governor, but a competent commander. Let's see. He's lazy, unintelligent, uncharismatic, unwise as well. That hurts our construction ability, our land tax. So he might do better as maybe our northern field commander. So let's go ahead. We'll take him out of the city, and we should see our income rise a bit as we do that, by 300 in fact. I'm going to keep him as the governor. Now, one thing I'm going to do here to ensure his loyalty a bit is we're going to allow him to run the place, at least somewhat. We're going to put him on local governance. I'm going to decrease or switch the policy to a growth tax policy. That's the equivalent of low taxes. And I'm going to uncheck these boxes to allow me to determine what I build and what I recruit. I don't think I'm going to build anything here just yet. I want to save my money. And I want to wait for him to get some good governor traits. He's not the lord of the settlement yet, but he will be in a couple of turns. And so I'm going to wait for that to happen. He'll get some bonuses, some discounts to construction, so we'll go ahead and wait for that. We may also think about consolidating some of our other troops here, but let's just take a look at our other governors. We already found out that our High Chieftain is an inept governor, but he's only a poor commander. He may get better at that. He's an attacker, so I think this is pointing towards him being a fighter. He's energetic. That can be good. That can help in terms of movement points. It helps in terms of hit points. So you know, he's overbold, so that sort of counters that a little bit. But I think he may turn out okay. We're going to take him out of the settlement with all of his good troops and just set them out there and watch our income. Did that go up or down? Well, doesn't matter. He's out of there for now. Our final two settlements, we've got another inept governor, poor commander, and we've got another inept governor, poor commander. Are either of these guys intelligent? No. And no. So, what do I want to do here? I feel like I want a governor in one of these settlements. Maybe we'll just keep the heir around in that purpose. You know, even if you are an inept governor, a poor governor, you can see these characters improve. These traits will change over time, and he may get better at his job. So we'll see. Maybe we'll leave him in that position, but I think I want to make this guy our southern commander. He is a pretty good defender to some extent. He's also good at attacking walls, so we'll keep him around in this area. And he's a southerner, which gives him extra command when commanding cavalry, so that could be useful if we take over some land in Khand and he's still around. He can be our horse archer commander. So how about we take him out? I'm going to take the archers out of here. We want to leave as small a garrison as possible. Okay. Fennis Rim is unwalled. It's our only unwalled settlement. But since we have some settlements around it, I don't think it'll be a target for the AI too much. So I'll take all of these field troops and send them somewhere. The question is where. Okay, how about this? Since you're a competent governor, you can stay here in Erebos, and we will decrease the taxes. We'll put that on auto manage. For you, we've got to do the same thing. And I think we did low taxes everywhere as well. Yes, so we are good to go. So we're going to have a governor here to watch things. We're going to have a field commander up here. This guy, I think, is going to be the one who's going to push into Mordor and start nibbling at a Dunabar. I think I'm going to want the tough troops for that. Erebos is not in too much danger just yet, so we'll consolidate troops here. These soldiers I think I want to send north. We don't have much going on in this part of the world currently. And Oh, yeah, I think we've done everything else that we need to do except take these guys out of Adel. And we're going to meet them up over here. Alright guys, well I think we're going to call that good for our first episode here. This is largely a test to see if my audio is at all working. Let me know how this sounds, how this looks. Let me know if you have any thoughts on how badly I screwed up that first battle, or any plans for expansion. Thank you very much for watching. This has been Count MRVHS for the 4th Age Total War. Have a good day, everybody.